Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to ask you a favor. So I have a personal need to videotape this lecture. So I purchased a small camcorder. It's actually cute, but I'm not well skilled about camera or technical devices. So I've learned much yesterday from my research assistant. And as I've said, you will be now available about the videotape lecture. Two other classes will be in system as a matter of a cyber lecture, and it's kind of a school polish, or the professor will encourage to launch. However, of course, we can say there are pros and cons about the context of learning. Face-to-face contact may be superior and more effective in terms of educational efficiency. However, in other aspects, that would address the need of math in some dimension, and also could drive the students to be focused on that lecture, not desultory about the mess of the class people. So I now practice on half basis about the lecture. Okay. In this class, we will continue on two and second and third themes. What are those? I regret the scene will not be clear, so your vision would trouble. I would color a font in a computer. So distracted, I use the black letters. As advised, you would retrieve the course material, printouts, which in coverage of this class discussion. So you can complement your understanding, which will not be precise in some sense, in some ambit, and many other. So I do not like to obfuscate this class progress. However, some many chores and actually corrective needs failed. So I will redeem the kind of fallacies or concern. So you are now on a third theme, second theme, a broad reach of administrative action and power. Actually, the active state, the paradigm of welfare state, which is provisional and address the needs of people, the direction is not conservative, dominantly. So the government are responsible in high extent and gravitate on in response with the public needs. And so increasing needs about welfare system, for example, and pension plan, economic justice are all the issues the government has to be responsible for. And also we consider the scope of constitutional powers are fairly in continuum and over an extent of play that the bureaucrats, unions, and public agencies could well find the sources of sources of authority, and it granted in limited provisions, actually within the constitutional document. However, as you imagine, there are vagueness, ambiguities, and in some cases, encroachments among three branches could well be envisaged and may be defined as virtue in some cases, since the Constitution is actually basic and principled. So many spaces are left in blanket or amenable to discretion of each responsible organs, and also as one of a playground that we have to report ultimately to the goal of nations. So you can see the high chances and much probabilities that the executive branch could reach in very strong ways, and also much leeway to exercise the executive power. So you can see the same. Let's begin our story with Christmas Carol. Charles Dickens, you know the name, famous. He told his readers they must act. The money was there as a domain. In order to appreciate his story, you must believe in the tremendous reach and power of bureaucratic government in order to appreciate the importance of the study of domestic law. I introduced the imagery of about unresponsive, unfashionable bureaucrat, some deprivation or abandonment from Kafka's novel or what is cinema story. So bureaucratic government has great potential to act. However, the reality has long been retracted in our understanding. So that could be transformed, and in some cases alarmed about crisis of society, for example, national crisis, and the kind of tension to alterate the embedded legend. So it's actually challenges and crisis of nation. You can see the New Deal context as I argued in the last class. So let's go on. Here are just few bits of data. The document, the 20th century domestic peace project. You now know the name of Federal Register. Is a official gazette or the kind of a collection of administrable rule makings, decrees, orders, and it is utility is very noticeable about due process concept and transparency. They publish the rules made by public agencies. So the concept of consistency and also system could be practiced. by relying on the rule-making power of a government. So it prevents arbitrary disposition or dealings about policy addresses. So the ultimatum could go to each individual citizen. For example, do you have can you claim the pension right, social benefit, entitlement, legitimately about the Constitution, a public statute, and in our guidelines, a standard. So rules made by agencies include kind of a standard that they implement the public policy. So they create and implement the public policy. They made rule to address equity and equal treatment of a citizen and others. The ideal, espoused by Constitution, equal protection of laws should be respected in the sphere of the public administration, not only against Congress, but also the executive. The constitutional mandate about equity should be kept meaningful of all the responsibilities of the federal government. The federal bureaucracy now issues approximately 7,000 rules and policy statements a year, 2,000 of which legally bind the citizen. By law, agencies must publish these actions in the Federal Register. The Federal Register, which was created in 1935, occupies more library shelf space than all the laws passed by Congress since it first met in 1789. In just the first 4 months of 2008, 24,850 pages were published in the Federal Register. So this increase about the administrative rules simply indicates the greatest reach of a public administration in the 20th century. As introduced, we also its highest pinnacle in 1970s. So the 10 years during in 1970s could well be said about the losing of a rulemaking. So very typical in the terms, and context could be influenced about the propensity of two parties, Republican and a liberal Democrats. So what other aspect we need to consider about active government? Annually, the Social Security Administration alone processes 9 million applications for Social Security benefits. Most of these raise no legal problems, yet the small fraction that does is 20 times greater in number than all of the civil and criminal lawsuits heard in the regular federal court each year, with the exception of bankruptcy cases. So once we encountered kind of a sigh and a deep breath about the accumulated number of case rolls commented in the world by Law School Pound, Dean Law School Pound. He said, now we are pressed by pack of case rolls, tremendous amount of case rolls, how do we marshal them in any meaningful order? So can we progress on or restatement or the kind of compact codes which includes principles and provisions in their terms we see the code as law. They see the common law, case laws as law. So the comment of Roscoe implies the convergence of two major legal traditions. We may exchange legal cultures, and he's one of close friend with a Kerrigan, who is a German legal philosopher, and their effort actually very operating to institute the United Nations. Their ideas about legal positivism and a kind of a Grundlaw concept all tender some philosophical basis of law in organizing a new world government. Of course, that should be eclectic, since now we often consider the international community in realistic perspective. So the politics would largely prevail. Often the second status of nations is commented by our minister, foreign minister. What is his name? He told us that the internationally law is tool for second tier of nations. It's actually the major powers, typically militaristic, Russia and China, United States, and France, Great Britain, to 5 standing members of a Security Council. You probably learned that the United Nations is operating centered